Kitten Teachers, and you're listening to Show X Live with Ken in his student accommodation all the way in Scotland, and Wade in his white windowless van? Uh-oh, I better get out of here. Enjoy the show!
Turn us on. Hey, look at that. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Show X on VTWProductions.com. Listen live at
Wait, I thought your specialty was turning us on.
Hey, now. Oh, gosh, I could actually talk about that in a bit. But anyhow, welcome. You'll see. Welcome to the show, everybody. Today, the 22nd of September, 2019. Welcome. Hopefully, you're having a good time. And let us get things going. So, let's go ahead and start out with a little bit of what?
Dysfunctional deviations.
Ken, how you been doing?
I'm not sure anymore. Yeah, I've been pretty good, sir. I'm good. I'm glad to be here. It's getting to that time of year where it's actually getting dark when the show starts for me again. So I can tell that autumn is coming. You know. How about you? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Let's see. I've been running around doing busy running around and trying to fit everything I can into the shortest amount of time. So, and I will get to that as I get started. But what have you been doing this week, sir?
Well, a few things. Let me have a look and try and remember myself. So first of all, I want to go shout out to my parents. It was my I said last week, but it was my parents were in New York for the past week because it was my dad's 60th. So another big shout out to my dad. For dinging to level 60, max level in Classic WoW. He can now get his epic riding mount and get all the way to New York.
Nice.
So he had a good time. They told us some stories, but basically the thing that I think is most worth sharing, and he probably wouldn't be happy with me saying it, actually, but I'm going to anyway.
Hey, nice.
Well, it's an experience I had as well, to be fair. It's just I think everybody gets done this way once. So it was their first day in New York, and they're walking down the street. And there's this bunch of like 5 massive dudes, all like 6'3", 4, 5, and fairly built, listening to some hip hop music and just sort of like standing around the side of the street. And as my parents walked past, they went, "Hey, you, hey!" And the dad mistakenly went, "Hi," and smiled at him because my dad's a nice guy. And the guy. They try to thrust CDs in my dad's hand and
yeah.
Here, take this. And my dad was like, "Well, what?" And he had like a CD in his hand, and he was like, yeah, normal donation is $10 to $20 usually, and we can give change. And my dad was like, "I'm not really interested." And they go, "Do you hate black people?" And he, my poor dad.
Oh no!
Oh, like he was just flabbergasted. I imagine he was just like, "What?" like they're just that was just so cruel.
They pounced upon him. Yes.
So they pulled out their wallet, and they've got all their dollars for the week, right? Like you get your money changed over to the currency for the country you're going to, right? And these guys' eyes must have just widened when they saw all the cash, and they put their hand in and grabbed a bunch and tried to pull it away. My mum stepped in at this point and was like, "No," and pulled it back out of the person's hand. Like, "No, that ain't happening." And they ended up getting $10 off my parents, but still, it
could have been much worse. But whoa,
it's adult bullying, right? That's what that is. That's adult bullying.
Well, and the challenge is, and this is a cautionary tale for basically anybody who travels to big cities. It doesn't matter if it's New York, Chicago, anything like that. Happens in big cities, U.S. Happens other places in the world. But that idea that people will try to essentially force upon you interaction and things like that, it's so wrong.
Yeah, it was a bit pathetic, but not on my dad. Pathetic of those people, right? My dad was just being innocent and expecting people to be nice and welcoming to strangers in the city. But no, they're pouncing on them and abusing them, and that was totally unfair. So shout out to my dad for being a nice, kind human being, and no shout out to those assholes. But they had a good time. They did all the New York stuff. They went and visited 9/11's site. They saw the They just visit all the standard tourist spots in New York, right? Got loads of photos, and I think they mostly had a good time. I think they were a bit shocked by the price of everything there, I sort of said to them, "Well, it's New York, like if all the places in the U.S. The U.S. is generally cheap compared to here for most things like food and for housing and stuff. But man, New York's more like London." And then they were like, right, we get it now.
Okay, so once they set their mindset the correct way, they were a little better off?
Yeah, exactly. So, sorry, I just saw the chat and saw the mod stuff. That was pretty funny. I can see why that would flag stuff. It was literally a quote from other people, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't us saying anything bad.
Well, hopefully it won't maintain that, so we'll see.
That's pretty funny. So this week I did something that's completely unlike me, and I'm all for people being very politically aware and taking part in politics. I think it's very important to take part in politics. But generally speaking, for me, when it comes to Scottish independence, I'm kind of on the fence these days because I used to be anti. I used to think we should be part of Britain. I liked being in the collective, and mostly because of a simple world view of I think working as a union and working together in a globalist manner is better than being independent countries squabbling over resources. Okay. Right? Generally speaking, I think that's wise. But then the whole Brexit thing happened, where it was like, great, we're part of this tiny, extra, little, slightly larger nation. And in exchange, we're leaving the massive European one. So I was like, well, this is BS. This is not what I asked for whatsoever. So ever since then, I've kind of been like, maybe if Scotland did go independent, we could still be part of the EU and maybe be part of the world more rather than Britain's little, we used to control a quarter of the globe. Farmer glory. And it just annoys the crap out of me. So I'm not trying to get too deep into politics, but basically, I went to a pro-independence rally yesterday in Glasgow.
Okay.
And this is not something I've ever done before, or ever saw myself doing. The purpose for it is that a couple of our friends are bikers, and there's a sort of like a hobbyist political group called the Yes Bikers, who are just pro-Scottish independence motorbikers, right? So they get together and they ride around their bikes with big Scottish flags out the back of them, and they drive around in circles around places, and they're a really nice bunch of people. Like I talked to a few of them, and they're really, like, it sounds like a scary thing, and I was kind of expecting burly dudes with leather jackets. They're wanting to beat people up with their spikes on their knuckles or something. No, not at all. They're all a bunch of nice people. And it was part of a general overall Yes rally in Glasgow. So they had some singers, and they had some politicians doing some speaking to the crowd, and it was fairly small. Like, I would say there was maybe a few thousand people there, but that was it. The area was not filled whatsoever. I was expecting a lot more, but in 2 weeks' time, I'm probably not going to go to this. But a couple of weeks' time, there's another one called March for Independence Edinburgh on Facebook, and there's tens of thousands of people who flagged it as interested in. So I imagine it's going to be a much bigger one this time, and that might be something to see. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about standing in the middle of a political group who are clearly all affiliated in a specific direction, specific cause, where I'm not. Not to say I'm opposing. I'm just not.
It's not something you're openly advocating for.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like I'm a bit of an outsider. And it's the kind of thing where I didn't want to say anything to anybody because, if somebody asks me my opinion, I might have to give it. And that might upset people, especially in a big group like that.
But I think in a situation like that, if you're doing it right and someone asks you your opinion, you say, I'm still trying to understand. I'm here to see and, hear what people are talking about. And so I'm still here forming my opinion, and this is one of my opportunities to learn more. And
absolutely. I see the logical, sensible side of that, but we're assuming that the person you're talking to is going to be that way as well.
Yeah, there is that piece where if they came at you, then it's kind of,
Yeah. I mean, there were some people there who were, clearly quite fanatical. They had tattoos all over them that had the Scottish flag and old Gaelic sayings and yes for Scotland, independence, like stop London controlling Scotland, all this stuff, like tattooed on their bodies. And I'm like, that's a bit, getting your political opinions kind of put in your body permanently is a bit extreme, in my opinion, in any situation. I think that's a little mad. I mean, what if in 2 years' time we get independence and then the people who were known for independence became a hate group or something? You could never foresee that, but what if it happened, right? What if that became the name of a hate group? And then suddenly you've got them tattooed on your body. Like, it sounds dumb to me to do that, right? I just don't think it's a wise thing to do. But anyway, so I went and saw this rally, and there was this one part that really did speak to me. There was a 16-year-old girl who stood up, and she had a guitar, and she said that she was, I'm standing here on behalf of the youth of Scotland, and we want independence, and we want to get away from Boris, the idiot, who's our current prime minister, and so on. And she started playing, and she wrote her own song for the independence of Scotland, and it was very good, actually. I was really blown away by her talent and her ability to, at 16 years old, to stand in front of a crowd of thousands. And her voice was booming through Glasgow, streets and streets away. There would have been tens of thousands that would have heard her.
Oh, nice.
And she did a great job. And when she was singing, she got to her chorus like the third time of repeating the chorus or something like that. And she said, "Join in," and the crowd did. Like, I'd say like half the crowd started singing. And it was cool. That was her first time showing the songs. They didn't know it. They were just enjoying it so much and absorbing what she said. And she was like, and suddenly she was really struggling to play because she was like crying,
emotional about it. Yeah,
and it was really sweet. It was really sweet to see this girl becoming overcome with passion and achieving her own sort of life dream. And that was great. So yeah, that was an interesting thing to see. The one thing that really struck me as well about the whole event was the age group. Now, I expected, for some reason, I always thought that the pro-yes people are generally younger. I always thought that was kind of the thing, like it was more passionate and a youthful thing. I'd say the average age at this place was about 45, 50 for the couple thousand people there. 45, 50. Yeah, like I looked around, there's only a few people in their 20s, like our age. Well, I say in our 20s. We're more leaning slightly closer to 30s these days. But.
So what did that make you kind of feel about or think about the overall group?
I think it's more. It says less about the group and more about the different.
Well, I would say
groups.
more like what was being shown, ideology versus what you maybe expected, where heavy opinion oftentimes can be thought that that's a bunch of youth individuals running around with heavy opinions and trying to get the word out, versus seeing more mature people out there doing it.
Yeah, I think it's a generational thing, because I think people in my age group are less likely to go out to a political rally. They'd rather see it on Facebook and share it, I guess, and not go out and do anything. But I think people in my generation are generally quite passive, and it's a really sad thing to see. Is because we're used to the active politics. Like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to express this, but in the past decade, probably since 9/11 onwards, maybe that was the catalyst. But from the 2000s onwards, I feel like politics really took a turn into something that people are super interested in. It became much more us v them, much more segregated. I know there's a lot of data that shows this is the case for the main political groupings of left and right wing. There is a greater segregation than ever, right? Globalism versus nationalism, right wing versus left wing, Democrat versus, and so on.
Okay,
right?
So yes, I would agree that groups have become much more, and the term I like to use most is tribal or team-based than they have in the past. But I wouldn't necessarily say that more people that I've observed are, as you were saying, political, so much as I am saying...
My point is that I think that this generation of like my generation, a little bit older and a little bit younger, I think the reason they didn't show up is because they'll show up to the big ones, but they won't show up to every single one because they are more well informed from online media and online sources and talking to people online. Whereas I think the older generation go to these events to learn themselves. That's how they learn. That's how they interact with people with their similar mindsets, right? I think they're more comfortable doing it that way because it's a generational thing, right? When 20 years ago, they had to go to these rallies because there wasn't Facebook and stuff around. And that's the way that they got used to. Whereas I think people in their 20s would not go to these rallies as much because they'd say, I don't see the point. I can just sign a petition online and get this, and it's probably has more effect. right? Even though I disagree with that myself.
It's interesting because I'd
so-
be curious because I always thought of rallies as, I guess because I've never felt compelled to participate in one, but I've always felt that was a place for people to get out to try to get a point across, to be seen, to let others know that it is an issue people care about, which is interesting because I'm trying to think of that comparison online, where when I see people, I see memes shared, I see people talking about subjects online all the time.
Like memes were the core of Trump's campaign. People laugh at me for saying that, but I genuinely believe that. If it wasn't for all the memes that were getting spread around, he wouldn't have got such a big youth vote. You know, people loved that crap. They were all over it. And it wasn't even Trump. It was his youth campaigners, his completely volunteer and unaffiliated campaigners who went online and were spamming boards and all these different places around the net with memes, and that spoke to people and that worked. And that just didn't really happen for the Democrat side, I found. Anyway, I'm going down a side hole here. So that was interesting to attend a rally. It was a bit eye opening. Do I feel swayed by it? I would say yes, but not in the right direction. I think it actually put me off a little bit because, one, I was really underwhelmed by the numbers. I was like, wow, I thought that the independence people would come out in force to these things, and it felt kind of empty. Secondly, the age group kind of put me off because of that if there's a nice collection of all ages, that implies that it's something that all of Scotland wants. But when you see just a single age group, it has a different implication. It says there's something generational about it, and that's also off-putting in some respect as well. You would hope. I generally think that a good political campaign and a good political movement or social movement should really span age groups, right? It should really be across all age groups if it's going to be encompassing. If it's just one, it's not that powerful. So other than that, I don't have much else to mention. Moving across the world is expensive and a pain in the butt. I've been looking into it turns out like I have my car on lease, and selling it's a bit more of a pain than I realize. Because for some reason I just thought that the people I bought the car from would just buy it back and they'd be cool with that. I didn't think at all that they might not be interested, for example. And I was like, oh crap, I need to think of other alternatives here. Also, I had to get the bloody dogs needed to get their rabies vaccines, and that was £190 a pop, so that's times 2.
Ouch! Yeah,
madness. So yeah, this is a very, very expensive move, but it will be worth it. It will be worth it. I'm just looking forward to getting there. You know, I'm counting down the days.
Well, it'll be getting
partly because I'm looking forward to it. Partly just to get all the prep over and done with.
I can imagine so, but hopefully that will, hopefully it's at least all progressing, and no major hiccups.
It is. Thank you. So, sir, what have you been up to? Tell me about your stuff.
Oh gosh, let's see. So, running around like a bad person this last week, got through work where I took a day short so that I could take another quick trip. Traveled out to Nebraska because my folks had gotten tickets for us to go see Hamilton again, or for me to see it again, but for us to go see it out in Omaha, as the traveling troupe has made their way to Nebraska, fairly close, and I was impressed and surprised that my parents were able to get tickets a month ago, versus where anything out here in Colorado and other places I've got, and the stuff in Florida and things I've tracked around have been such that it's like almost impossible to actively get tickets, let alone less than a month before the showing. And so that impressed me. I told them, go ahead and get 4, make sure you max it out, because we'll find somebody to go with us, I'm sure. And we did manage. Went out there, my younger brother Earthweaver joined us, and so we met up at my folks' house. My initial goal was to drive out there Wednesday night after work, so I could be there all day Thursday to sleep, get ready, and kind of hang out before heading the other 45 minutes out to Omaha to check out the show. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. Got home, had to spend some time kind of getting things cleaned up, packed, and I was in no state where I was then tired, and it was middle of the night, and it's kind of like, nah, I don't think I should make that drive just yet. I should at least sleep some. So passed out for maybe 3 or 4 hours before jumping on the road at first thing in the morning. So something like left the house, I want to say at 3 in the morning. make the drive out. I headed out, mostly uneventful, bit tiring. Stopped in my mother's hometown for a little bit in the middle just to grab some food, but I didn't really stop. And then continued out to Lincoln. And now that my parents are in their state of getting ready to move and are about to become nomads, they are basically at the last point of getting rid of everything in the old house. And so going around through it, the old trundle bed that I started with, that my brother and I were sleeping on, my parents' bedroom set, and I think the entertainment center upstairs with the TV and dining room table. And I want to say that was all the furniture really left in the house, a couple shelves, and I think an entertainment center downstairs. But essentially they're at the point where they're just trying to sell everything that they know they're not taking with them and that they're not going to try to keep with them in their motorhome.
Know that feeling? Yep.
So it was interesting seeing like those last vestiges, last pieces of everything that we had in the house. My parents offered to both my brother and I kind of the, please take what else you can, anything last that we need out. And how did I put it? I ended up bringing home, as I packed up my Escape with everything that could fit. I knew going in there that my dad was going to try or wanted me to pick up, and I'd said, cool, to another table saw that he had. So kind of bigger tools. But beyond that, I wasn't sure what else I was going to walk home with. Going through the rest of the house, my parents had things like, my mother had probably, a half dozen cassette tape players in the basement. Things that were, and I was actually kind of impressed, maybe I should have taken a picture. Things down to not quite first generation, but pretty close, old Walkman, like Sony Walkman, some old AWA and Panasonic gear that I just I don't need any of this. I don't mobile play tapes at all. I have a tape player when I need to, but otherwise no reason for a mobile cassette player. So
yeah, it's pretty, that's kind of vintage, isn't it?
Yeah, and there were a few things like that where it's just kind of nope, there's really no good place for these electronics anymore. It's time to let them go. If you can sell some of these things, sell it for the price that anybody's willing to come take it off your hand.
Find a museum for the tape player, man. I mean, that's dated technology now.
It's not even good enough stuff to hold on to. So anyhow, got through some of those things. And I was kind of happy for it. I got it set up downstairs, although I have to get some more things for it. One of the other things I grabbed was my father's vinyl record player. He had a Panasonic Technics, was it 1900 direct drive, which is a beautiful player, old classic player. So finally got that home, got it hooked up to my stereo downstairs. Although I feel like I need to get an inline amplifier for it because it plays, but it's super quiet, super quiet going into the stereo I have. So I have to look that up, but it works. I got it all running, as well as my brother and I basically split a stack of vinyl records that they had. And so, we've got things to explore and go through. We kind of had we're not going to fight about it, but we're looking at each other's stacks like, wait, did you just grab 2 of the Isaac Hayes records? And I have one over here. Or wait, what did you just grab you didn't show me? He did get, I want to say it was the, whatever historical collection of Motown hits. That I don't know how many records are in that one, 4 or more, and I was just like, oh, I see what you did there. But without too much of us griping at each other, we just kind of all right, we each got piles of vinyl. We'll be good. Take off from here.
Nice.
One of the ones that he gave me that I looked at, it needs to be cleaned, hopefully in a way that doesn't break anything. But I listened to a little bit of it this morning. Was a 45 smaller vinyl. Or actually, it's a 33 speed, but a smaller 7-inch vinyl of the Star Wars story for Star Wars: A New Hope. And it's one that's like a child's audiobook, but on vinyl, is the best way I could describe how it's done, because it is voiced as talking about the story of Star Wars, and it's 2 sides. I was just listening to a couple bits at the beginning of it, but it progresses the story pretty darn quick, where it doesn't focus on every line, anything like that. It just kind of gets through the general, this is what's happening. And what really got me is when the narrator, the person delivering the speech for it, voiced Vader. Because
Okay.
that was so different from like the classic James Earl Jones Vader, right? Because it was someone who was doing this whole record himself, voicing the various things that when it hit, I was just like, whoa, that's not Vader. That ain't right. But it was fun to see, and I forgot how many of those we had. That my family, we have several, because I think Joe took the big Peter Pan record, but I have a couple smaller ones that I think are more spoken like story of, because I remember we had several records that were just like people talking stories, telling stories, versus it all just being music. So I look forward to playing with that some more. That's like for me a kind of a cool throwback thing that we did get hold of.
I wonder how much of that's actually like. Make sure have a look around online with each thing and think to yourself, can I find this online? Right? Like if there's no online version, you might want to upload it to like an anonymous YouTube account or something, just to because I think it's important for humanity to record these things online that previously were not. So you never know, that might make somebody's day. You know,
it is something that there's. I don't know if anything we have is not out there, but it's nice to create digital copies of things. It's a nice enough player. I probably could. I would have to get it figured out with the quality setting or the volume to get it up there. So I did think about that to a degree, but there's actually two of the records that I have, or I guess there's three that were produced that we have that I didn't even think to be a thing. One that my brother somehow remembered that I totally did not was, I think, the church we went to as children. They recorded some of either the children's choir sessions or some of the, I don't know, sermons, whatever it was, but they cut them to vinyl. And in these super thin, like crazy plastic little records, essentially, but they weren't like thick vinyl. Like they're very floppy, but
that's crazy.
Would actually play. And so I've got one of those that we had, so I'll have to check that out. As well as there's a vinyl cut of my mother, and that one was what? Earth. Do you remember if that was choir or was that like school? I think hers was college or something, college choir she was in. As well as a vinyl cut of my father in choir and I believe high school, and the choir he was part of. And it was funny because when I mentioned it about looking at our mother's one, she was quick to say, "Oh God, that still exists." I was like, "Oh, we got to listen to this." She's like, "No, you don't. No, you don't." Whereas, as I was commenting, like, "Wow, they cut performances from high school and college into vinyl. That's kind of cool." And my dad was like, "Well, yeah, we were good. Heck yeah, they cut it. We were damn good." And so I'm really curious to take a moment when I get things sorted out fully to listen to those, some of the history.
Yeah, that's cool.
Not just old music that my parents collected, but some actual renditions of things they did. So that should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. What other things? The challenge is my parents are on pace where as long as everything goes right, the house will be sold by the end of this month. And they will be trying to acquire their new house, mobile house, within the week or so after that. But this trip did let me kind of go into it thinking, this is probably going to be the last time I ever walk around in that house. And this is the one that my parents picked up on, I thought sometime in 91, I believe, is when they acquired it. And so have been in the house for some time, right? Quite a bit. And it was weird because at the same time they've done so much work on the house to get it sold, to get it out there. And over the years they'd upgraded a few things that it's not the house I remember spending 3 years in.
Yeah, there's still a link to that memory, right?
It is, and it's a focal point, really, is what part of it is that even if I didn't stay there, there's enough opportunities and times that my family, extended family, everyone kind of got together in Lincoln, and that was the house we would often stay at. And so just kind of the thing of us getting together, that house being a focal point, and that after grandparents have passed away and things like that, that some of the places we'd gone no longer are places we go. And so it's interesting just kind of realizing that this is a chapter in our family's lives that's just shutting down, closing, and we won't have that anymore. And as I did that and was eventually leaving Lincoln, there was a sense that I don't know the next time I will go that far east in Nebraska. Like, I still see going out to Gothenburg, the town where most of my mom's side of the family's at, but that's kind of it. I just don't see the draw to go that much further east. So I kind of did a slight loop on my way out of town where I drove by the townhouse I had lived in for a minute when I was renting and just kind of some of the sites as I was leaving town. thinking, I don't know when I'll be back here. Kind of crazy. But shut that down and left with a car that was significantly fuller than I expected. And jokingly, I told my father, in fact, I told him that I felt like I was not just taking back some of the tools that were not going to be things he could use on the road, but also ended up taking maybe some of his projects that he might not have ever quite fully finished.
Right.
And I say that because he had sent me with, just randomly, some like mud flaps that you would stick on the back of a car or truck. And I was like, I don't need these, Dad. I don't need these. Oh, these are fine. They're still in their original packaging. I'm sure. I'm just like, okay, you just want me to take the time to either sell these to someone else hoping they have value or find a place to put them on a vehicle of mine.
They probably do. Just how to do a yard sale or something. You never know what they can sell
and that's
for.
the thing. But it is me going to have to take it now a separate point where they're running out of time to sell stuff, so they just kind of threw some things at me, and for me to have the opportunity to sell some things for them. But also,
dude, the number of gifts that we've been putting together now are just insane. Because originally there was like, oh yeah, we'll give that couch to that one friend, and that one guitar to the other friend, and everything else will sell. Now it's like, yeah, 90% of the stuff that we have we're giving away because we realized how hard it is to actually sell stuff.
Yeah, and there's lots of means to do it, and I've seen other people do it successfully through various things. I advised my parents on several ways to do it. I know one of my father's challenges was he's acquired some of the stuff secondhand, or he because of where he was working at the hospitals as a cardiopulmonary tech. While he wasn't the surgeon making all the money, he worked day to day with the surgeons who were, and so he had opportunities throughout time where some of the surgeons, when they would be buying the latest greatest technology, would be replacing things and give him some really good deals on older technology. So one of the things he was trying to sell was a plasma television. And it was a plasma that weighed easily 80 pounds, this little plasma TV. It's a 42-inch plasma that is a 1080i. It's only 720p. And it's a Dell brand. And it had more old inputs and outputs than like any television I'd seen. Where it had a VGA in for a computer as well as a DVI connection. And it had RCA's, S-Video. I want to say it might even had component. Had optical out. I did have HDMI. A couple of intense stuff. But this thing was just built to have all these things. It even had on it the speaker connections were like straight wire to external speaker connections. So it had its own amp to run wired speakers through it. Right? Just all of that. And so it was just like, holy cow. And so we got it set up there because my younger brother took their other television, I think their Samsung or whatever they had, the smaller one, so he took that home. And so they needed something just to watch until they're out completely, as well as trying to sell it. But I think my father was trying to list it originally for something like $100 or so, and I was just like, no. I was telling my mom, like, the value of this stuff you have, it's good stuff, but because of what I can get for the cheaper values today, you'd be lucky to get $60 for that TV. Yes, it's a plasma, and maybe when it was purchased, it was several $1,000s. But I can go on Marketplace or eBay or Craigslist or something and pick up not a 42-inch, but like a 50 or 55-inch 1080p screen today for $100 or less. So trying to sell that for anything close just isn't going to happen. But there are a few things like that. Even his audio receiver, which is a really nice audio receiver, but it has no HDMI in or out switching. And so it's only RCA, S-Video, and things like that, where I'm just like, so nobody needs it today. You can't do it. And so it's just like, you'd be lucky to get $100 for that thing, even though it's a solid, really good receiver. Just
It's the kind of thing, maybe if you sold it to like a specialty audio store or something, right? Like maybe. Maybe someone like Hando who does AV stuff who might be kind of useful.
No, it's one that you like donate to a church. Or it's something that but I mean, if you can sell it, it's the logic I use for anyone who gets to the point where they need to actually get rid of things, is take whatever amount makes you feel good about someone coming to your house to pick up what otherwise you would have to ship to the trash, right? If somebody's willing to pay you money to take something off your hands and out of your possession and not worry about, let them, instead of you having to trash it or pay to get it disposed of properly or something like that. And it gets to the point, if they will pay you $20 to come take that couch from you, That is $20 you didn't have and effort you don't have to expend.
Yeah.
So that is just a general logic piece I throw out to anybody who's in the situation of not just like, I'd like to change out some things or downsize, but I need to move. I need to get rid of things. Let people pay you to take your things away for you. Even if you barely make anything off it. So they're going through that though, and there's still a lot of clutter stuff, and as well as they were still finishing cleaning up the house and such for when they sell it. It's funny because my mother was trying to be just all these last minute things to get things clean. One of the things they also did is they're reducing their vehicles down to one car because they're going to have the RV and they're going to tow this newer car they got. It's actually a Dodge Durango that's really nice to pull behind it. So my dad has this beautiful F-350 big truck, big Ford that he's hoping to sell for like $50,000 because it's still really well quality truck. And then my younger brother Earth was fortunate enough because he got to get the classic hand-me-down effort of technology and gear through the family where my mother no longer needed her car. And so basically he bought it from them for a song and transferred everything over. So he went from our grandmother's old car that worked, but as he said, would keep you on your toes because sometimes it would just decide to stop working in the middle of an intersection or somewhere driving anytime and just go away, right? And so this way he got into a much more modern car that should have been, I mean, he's back home since I saw him in chat, so hopefully it went fine and no new gremlins or anything like that, and he has a much more ready-to-perform car available to him than he did, so that's good. He got probably the biggest score of things that got taken out of the house. They tried to throw like a bunch of kitchen things. My parents were saying, hey, do you need a bread maker or a rice cooker? Or...
He doesn't need these things. These are obviously requirements to survive.
So
of course
Ken,
we needed them.
My answer was, those are nice, but I already have one. And I don't need a second.
Well done. Well done.
So it wasn't so much that I wouldn't have been willing, really, but I don't need two bread makers, right? And I don't need two sets, or what was the other one that I was like, I don't need two rice cookers. Just like, no. Thank you, but no. And so I avoided those things. I did, and I'll be curious to check it out, grab a classic looking, because I have no idea how old it is, Mr. Coffee brand loose leaf iced tea brewing kit.
Oh, that'll be very useful.
It's basically a coffee maker without a heating element to filter cold water through to make iced tea. Because I make iced tea, but it's usually just throwing some iced tea bags or tea bags in a regular pitcher and up on the window for the sun to brew kind of thing. Versus this one where it has actually kind of like a coffee filter built into it. And so you just put loose leaf tea in it. And so which I have some really nice ones, so I can't wait to try it out. That was one thing. I'm trying to think the other stuff I just have that I'm trying to figure out, like an old air mattress, like for temporary air mattress type thing. So I have stuff for guests. Other bulky things. Like my dad had an unopened belt sander kit that he was like, here, I'll let you hold on to this for me while we're traveling. I may need that back at some point. Just like, all right. It's one that I'll probably try to set up. I have to now, upon the acquiring of all these new things, reorganize parts of my house, especially the garage, so that I can set up corners to actually set up these larger pieces of equipment and tools I now have.
Well, you're going to have to get rid of those spiders that are outside the front of your garage first, especially if you want me to visit.
I mean, the spiders you don't see crawling. I just see their little egg pouches like they want to be more.
I'm not coming to yours for Christmas anymore.
Oh, well, no, that's in the garage. Whoa.
What's that?
Can you hear me all right, or do you hear weirdness?
Yeah, you sound like you've got a fan in front of your face, though. Which is quite weird. Chat, what's going on? Is it me as well, or
no?
It seems to be fine now.
Yeah, I restarted the audio engine, but something weird happened. Because now, let's see, my audio...
Oh, wait, I think I hear myself. Yep, I hear myself now.
Oh, man.
It sounds like it's coming through one of your speakers or something.
No, the volume just got turned up ridiculously loud in my ears.
Oh, sorry.
And so I'm trying to figure out how to fix that. something hiccuped, and when it did, it's like you're screaming in my ears, although you are not. Where is... Actually, I think the actual Windows audio thing, like, went away. Like, the actual sound and everything, like, went away. Let's see. Change that. Hopefully, everybody out there, you hear me okay?
I hear you okay.
Okay, that's fine. It's just in my ears. It's really loud, so I need to... Okay, there we go. Not to be you. Where is this? How if that should... Okay, there. So, like I said, that was just really weird. It totally adjusted that thing. Now, the question is, are we still streaming all right? Because I also saw... Maybe that was just my browser. Like, there was a big... My computer did a general hiccup where I think the audio channels on it all decided to freak themselves out. And right now, I'm looking on Twitch saying that the video is unavailable, but can you guys still see and hear us via the Twitches and such?
Yep, Sarah says audio is fixed now, and Copy says can echo more than fan effects. She suggested the can echo would probably help.
Good. No, yeah.
Are you sure? We sure we're doing the can echo?
I think we're okay, Copy. Thank you for the suggestion. You butt.
Bad Copy.
Anyhow, yeah, that's going to be something that I know never goes away. I'm going to have to like set up something in it that I can push a button to give Ken echo.
You show meme.
Oh gosh, but yes, other things I got from the parents. So just random things beyond that. It got bigger. A whole kit of useful things, but silliness. Right? There you go. Copy. Echo Ken is what it's officially called now. But a set of like tubes of caulking and silicone and stuff to seal like the pavement out my house, and just all these things for projects, all these kind of things, an electric paint gun and such, and just so I've got all these things I'm now trying to incorporate into my home. I did pick up some old family artwork as well. There was a painting that they listed out that I didn't know where it came from and never asked, but was in our parents' house as long as I can remember. And so it's just like a painting of a little bit of like a stream coming through a forest, with some kind of eclectic colors as choices for it, but I remember back as far as I can recall, this painting existed. And I still haven't looked to see what the date on it is, but my parents essentially said, yeah, we got that in Mexico like 45 some years ago, right? And so, dang. And then that, we like an art piece of carved wood that has kind of a soldier standing on it that my father said came from Spain. An old family photo that actually, as I looked into it, does not have all of my cousins in it, is how old this one was.
Wow.
I think the youngest cousin in it is my cousin Caitlin. And so looked at that like, oh man. And so just all of these things where I kind of picked up little historic things from the family. And I'm excited about that. There are certain things I think need to be preserved or still exist in our family, and I know some of it's been spread to my siblings, one ways or another. I did try to get Earth to take a few more things, but his comment of having the 1-bedroom apartment that he lives in, and therefore not really having the space to put tons more stuff. I was like, come on,
sure,
just put up more shelves.
Big shout out to Kuro, by the way, who has won a copy of Star Wars KOTOR. Knights of the Old Republic.
There's a classic.
For retweeting us on Twitter. Thank you very much. Oh, he already owns it. Oh, cool.
You have to get it.
All right, we'll give that one to somebody else. I'll give you another one. Don't keep that code.
I was gonna say I've got some gifts I can give too. If you can PM him the list to see if he wants to choose one.
I just sent him a different one. We'll see if that one goes through or not. It's this. I don't even know what this is. It's Stickbold, a dodgeball adventure.
I have no idea what that one is.
I don't even know if it's a prize. I mean, it might be a burden, right? It might be just clogging up your Steam library.
Random things we've acquired. Nice. That's funny. Oh, gosh. Okay, other things I did just
get prizes.
But yeah, so did the family thing, was able to come rushing back from there. Yesterday, as I traveled back, my goal was actually to be back Friday night, but much similar to me trying to get out to Nebraska as I came back after we watched Hamilton, which was wonderful. It was neat to see the cast again. I went dressed up again, and as per now my usual, this first time I did, A lot of people wondered if I was part of the cast, which is yay, but at the same time I always think, really? You think cast members in costume would just be walking around the lobby, hanging up in the top nosebleed area to just chat with folks? Cool. But had a lot of people take pictures with me, so that was fun. My parents got to witness kind of that, where my younger brother's like, oh yeah, I'm used to this. I've been his handler before as costumer. But got pictures taken, danced around the area downtown, headed back home, was exhausted, passing out in the truck kind of thing. But also what made that a challenge is throughout that day before the show, where I should have been napping, I was instead helping my parents organize, loading my car, helping clean the house, vacuum, patchwork on some things, stuff like that. So it just ended up doing my part to try to help the folks out. On the way back, got back and was messaging some of my cousins to say, hey, I'll be traveling through Gothenburg on the way out. Anyone want to grab dinner or something? They're like, well, yeah, if you get here before like 5:30, we can run and do stuff. Otherwise, we're busy. It's like, all right, cool. So I started making my way out there. Would have been fine, but then somewhere on the way on the interstate, there was a huge accident. I was not aware of this at the time. All I know is I was heading west, chilling, and suddenly I saw lights in front of us, cop car kind of thing, and a bunch of brake lights and people diving into the right lane. And enough so to start having to brake, like, what's going on? And looking way ahead up on this bridge, saw a guy standing in the middle of one of the lanes. And it was just kind of like, what is going on? And from there was able, make out that he was basically right there shutting down the highway and directing people off the interstate at one of these random exits in the middle of the state, not even at a town. And so we're just like, I guess we're all now going on surface roads. And it made me divert probably a solid hour or more out of my way to continue on. So did not make it in time, but what I did make it is my family, because of what they do, were hosting several sporting events at the high school that night. There was a volleyball tournament happening for both Friday and Saturday that my uncle and aunt were running and big parts of, as well as Gothenburg was playing a football game that night against one of their big rivals, a team that had equal record to them, both like 2-0. And so all these people from around the country in town for the games. And so I showed up to see my cousins as they were there. Two of my cousins were helping run the concession stand so they could raise money for the speech team. And in doing that, I ran through, said hey, ended up helping, and therefore that didn't all end in somewhere about 10 o'clock at night. And I kind of figured probably not the best thing to now jump on the road. I'm already exhausted, and I don't need to spend the next 4.5 hours fighting to stay awake. So crashed at one of my cousin's houses. We stayed up, hung out. Doing so, he introduced me to a game that I'll probably have to pick up if it goes on sale again. Darn it. And we just kind of chatted and such. But then finally made my way back, got home, unpacked everything that I could real quick, although the saw's still in my truck or my car because it's too heavy for just me. And had to then get cleaned up, changed, and head back out before a little birthday party last night for a friend of the show, Beck Wasick, our author friend, for her book Bloody Notes. But we were out celebrating her and Bilbo and Frodo's birthday, as according to the lore of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, she shares her birthday essentially with the Hobbits. And so she likes to have Lord of the Rings and Hobbit-themed birthdays. So
that's cool.
Had one there with her folks, watching Lord of the Rings, and ended up playing Lord of the Rings Trivial Pursuit, which I have found I am not a geek when it comes to Lord of the Rings. I appreciate Tolkien to a degree.
I think that I'm a geek with Lord of the Rings, but then I talk to people who are geeks with Lord of the Rings, and I'm just like, oh my god, they're talking with characters I didn't know existed. Yeah.
Absolutely. Lots and lots of that. I ended up earning, I think, 2 pie pieces in Trivial Pursuit, but that was it. And then Beck and John just rolled the board with us. John ended up winning in such a way that when he did the final questions, we were paying attention. We chose, these are the ones, we're going to choose you the questions that are about the actual production of the movie. You struggle with these because it's like, which actor did this, or you know, which
I would
production
have no idea
person
what to
did it,
do.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's a more difficult one.
I'd tap out. I'm done.
And so we were like, gotcha. We got to set you up with that. And the final question for him to win the game was ridiculous because it said, during the filming of Lord of the Rings, one actor broke his toe by kicking, or which actor broke his toe by kicking a helmet during a scene?
Oh, I remember this.
Right? It's one that's actually fairly well known. It's it's Vigo or Virgo is the actor's name, first name.
I don't know.
But anyhow, the challenge and why this was so bad for us is we had the whole game been joking about that he had broke his foot, and that I want to say the one who plays that Sean broke his or cut his hand or something during a scene. So we were aware of that,
I heard that
right?
too.
We were aware of those. There was a question there that somebody got their ribs broken or bruised during a scene on a horseback.
Oh, jeez.
And that was Orlando Bloom, which we hadn't known. Not any of us hadn't known. But so the final question came up about who broke their toe, and he was like, wait, seriously? Because his wife, Beck, was the one reading it. So as soon as she read it, she was like, no, because he's going to get it. And so as soon as it came out, that's what it was. And she was so mad, she started reading the rest of the questions on that card. Like, what if we picked this? What if we picked this? He knew all of the other answers off top of his head like nothing, except for like one. It was one that a category he had normally smoked. There was one question in that whole card he didn't know. So we were like, nope, he earned it. He won this. But that was a lot of fun. So did that. Got home late last night, this morning, and slept and basically got back here, turned on, ready to do the show. Minus some little bits of geeky things I've done. All right. Beyond that, let's see. Yeah, I'm flying through time. That. The home projects, nothing else to there. One other thing I did want to mention, because my brother and I had a discussion about this, and I've been trying to throw it out there for everyone who will listen. Correct me if I'm wrong, Earth, but I binged, now all of, a series on Netflix called The Evolution of Hip Hop, which apparently my brother said there's 3 seasons of it or so. Whatever it was, I just played everything in order that was on Netflix and have acquired and watched it all and really, really enjoyed it. Not sure if everyone out there is a fan of hip-hop music. This does a really neat thing where the gentleman who does it is an MC and goes through and has traced kind of not just the time frame of, but some of the major topics in hip-hop and hip-hop culture over time, and gone back and found key players throughout the years and sit down and interviews them about various things. I think one of the main first subjects that came up was some of the early hip-hop and then the culture and the East-West Coast rivalry that occurred, where hip-hop started in New York and that whole area, but then how it...
Is that just hip-hop? I thought that was like a general thing.
Well, hip-hop rap. A lot of music in general has come out of New York and things like that, but very specifically when they talk about what is the origin of hip hop and rap, it goes back to New York, and then from there they talk about other specific aspects and pieces of it, about where one part of it is, or where certain pieces came from and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so they talk about some of those things, and so that's really nice. But they go further into it because they get into East-West. They go into kind of some of the key players in it. They talk about like the famous ones about Tupac Shakur and Big Papa, and how they started as friends, ended up rivals, ended up both of them getting killed. But then it goes back in time again and starts talking about how different cities the culture and the music started. And it really traces its route back to where the different genres of hip-hop started, where you had different eras of it, how it first came out of the 70s and mostly disco music and how different groups were playing. One of the more interesting ones that I got towards the end was the rise of hip-hop in the West Coast. Actually it goes back to gangster rap specifically. It talks about gangster rap. It talks about where it got popularized, who the original person to kind of cut a vinyl record of gangster rap, and then who made it big. And where I forget the name of the first one was, what was it? It starts with an S. It was like Scooty Doo or something like that. And then the first person who brought it big in the West was Ice-T, as he brought it out. And then what's really interesting about that piece that I wasn't aware of ahead of time, nice copy, Gangsta Cat, is that they was NWA very famous as highlighting probably the biggest era of gangster rap out on the West Coast. The members of that, we all know that Eazy-E came from being an actual gangster, but not knowing that, for me, Dr. Dre and I want to say it was Yella and maybe DJ or Yella and Ren, I think both, but some of them were in a group ahead of that doing electronic techno music. And so they had cuts of like Dr. Dre wearing shiny outfits, spinning techno music with electronic beats.
That's amusing.
Right, way back before he ever did gangster rap kind of thing. So it was fun to see. But they talked through it, but it was just like, at the time, that was the music that West Coast was doing and things. So it was really interesting. And I highly recommend it to everybody out there. This is just my own personal endorsement because I learned so much, and they do so many good cuts of the music, and it's pretty raw, and talking to all the people, and it's just telling the story that's there without trying to necessarily spin anything. I have enjoyed the heck out of it. I want it to continue because they hit most of the major artists I care about, and yet there's still so many others that I hope they have time to continue telling those stories because there are so many artists that I love. Anyhow, so throw that out there as one of the big things I've been consuming beyond all of that. So I think that's most all of what I had in mind for things I haven't been doing that have been or have not been geeky this week. Like I said, it's been a whirlwind of activity for me as I keep trying to hope to settle down so I can actually accomplish more things around the house and continue to just like chill. I say this knowing that I have more things I have to accomplish. So yeah, it's been a week, but it's been a heavy-handed good one, let alone the little bits of geek that I may have been able to accomplish. So nice thing, though, is we come up to a potential break here. I think I can probably quickly grab some song to throw in here. What should I throw in here today? Let's see. Last week I did Edifice, maybe, because I always try to avoid the ones that'll obviously get us smacked for
I mean, like, I wish we had... I feel like this is a great opportunity for any of our friends who are musically inclined. Like anybody out there who has any friends who are in a band and wants to, get a little bit extra, a little bit exposure, we can help out a little bit, and in return we get to play some cool music.
Well, and that'd be one. It's one of those. Even if other people out there are aware of new artists or people they know personally that would like to get their music featured on something, we'd happily share it. That would be fun. And so
absolutely, as long as it's not, I don't know, full of racism, we're pretty much cool with it.
Things like that would be nice. So yeah,
low bar. Right. That's kind of an easy minimum,
Yeah, things like that. While we go to the break, though, feel free to email into the show anything you've been doing for your geek cred and such, as we'll come back with that after the break, and we'd love to share what you guys have been up to. We always like to enhance the discussion with other people's geek, not just ours. So feel free to email it in at showx@vtwproductions.com. As Copy has jumped the gun there saying that she has been watching, and I believe this is an anime that I've heard of but have not seen, That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. And so, yeah, I know I've seen stuff about that, but I don't know it. All right. With that, though, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back, and we'll get into a little bit of geek cred. So with that, you're listening to Show X on VTWProductions.com, and we'll be back right after this message. This is a Cannon Fodder game remix off OC Remix that I'll be playing during the break, and we'll be back in just under 4 minutes.
Send in your emails to showx@vtwproductions.com. listening to Show X on btwproductions.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Alright, so let's see, jumping right in with what we've been doing that's been geek this weekend. What have you been up to? Actually, wait, I say that and I still need to want to make sure that I do the actual...
I'm a geek. Are you a geek? Geek cred, level up!
I mean, official section, so yes.
Yeah, we need to officially be in the segment, yeah. Not much. The one thing, there are a couple of things I wanted to bring up. The first one is... I've continued reading this Scott Mayer's series because I'm really, really enjoying it. So the first one was, what was it called? It's all sort of puns, like or plays on idioms within the English language. Like the first one was "off to be the wizard," so instead of off to see the wizard, this one's called "Spell or High Water" as opposed to "Hell or High Water." So I'm reading Spell or High Water right now. It came out in 2014. It's a comic fantasy series of books written by Scott Mayer. So far, there are 6 novels in the series, which were published by 47 North. And yeah, it's really, really thoroughly enjoyable. I'm blown away by how much I'm enjoying these books. I can't remember who recommended it to me. I've been trying to find who it was. So if it was any of you, do let me know, because I really can't remember who said I should read Off to Be the Wizard, because it was a fantastic book, and I'm halfway through this next one already. I want to just spend a bunch of money and get all of them and just binge them, because I'm just enjoying it so much. So like I said before, but let me go over it again. The premise is basically this guy hacks into some server randomly, and he's just searching through, kind of bored and just exploring the deep webs, and he comes across this massive text file, searches for his name in it, and realizes that he finds himself, and he realizes that he can modify the file, and it modifies real life. And the problem is, obviously, sitting in front of a computer and hacking this file is quite tedious and slow, and if you're trying to be quick, it doesn't work very well. And at one point, he transports himself into medieval England, and he time travels with the file, so he changes his time to be, the 1100s or whatever it is. And he quickly realizes that this is a very inefficient manner, so he makes a little phone app to control it. The wizards of the time quickly inform him of, actually, what you're doing is also very inefficient. We've now set up a whole bunch of scripts and macros which will now look at us, continually be monitoring us for specific actions, and if we do them, certain things will happen. So if somebody is holding a staff, if somebody has sleeves that are particularly wide and is wearing a wizard's hat, then if they say the specific phrases in what's that universal language? Universal language. Esperanto. Okay. It was a synthetic language that was made like 40, 50 years ago.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that one.
Yeah, it was made as an attempt to try and make the world have a common language, and it was created to be quite efficient, etc. And it's a very smart language, which has lots of stuff that's been translated into it, but nothing has been translated back because nobody speaks the damn language. Right?
That's it. First time I'd ever heard of it. Yeah.
So that's why the wizards in this universe use it as their magic words, because it sounds magical and whimsical when you say "flugy" to fly, but nobody knows to use those words to activate the macros. So if it's very unlikely that somebody will have a wizard hat, have sleeves with the exact inches in diameter, and so on to activate the macros to do magic. So they're just walking around with like a staff, wizard hat, and robes, and they just say some things or do specific actions and magic, and it seems to be magic. They're actually modifying on fly this file, which is the parameters for the universe. And in the second book, they're now exploring other magical communities that exist. They have done similar things. So some of them are like medicine men, Native American medicine men. Some of them are like, I don't know, Hindu, and some of them are like African shamans, but they're all just basically doing the same thing, but they have their own versions of how it's done. In this book, they're visiting the Atlanteans, who are obviously who are a group of all women.
Okay.
Sorceresses. They've called themselves sorceresses. and but they're being like super efficient, unlike the medieval village that the guy wizards are in, where basically they just make burritos for themselves and transport cars back to the old times to have fun.
Okay.
They're just having a good time mostly. I mean, it's hilarious. A lot of it's so funny. But yeah, in this book, you're exploring Atlantis, and they've done stuff like they've learned how to molecularly create a single molecule thick diamond sheaths that are used to make these beautiful buildings. They made this majestic floating city that's like gorgeous, and they've been trying to build up this culture and everything. And the guys are just like, we can make burritos appear out of our hats. it's just it sounds kind of slightly sexist, but I think the book actually does a really good job of engaging a lot of gender themes to do with sorceresses, witches, and wizards, and this sort of thing. And basically, it plays against the popular characteristics of, guys are these brain dead idiots who are always trying to, flirt with the women. And you think, okay, well, that's just a stereotype and it's a bit dumb to play to that. But then the women are the exact same. Like, you go to the women's colony and you realize, oh, they're all really thirsty as well. And they explained it very concisely in the last chapter. They said, when you see a stag night, a bunch of guys celebrating for a guy to get married, and you see them in a bar or something, how scared are you? And they're like, well, somewhat, not very. They're like, okay. If you see a hen party out and they're having a good time, how scared are you? And they're like, very. They're like, exactly. It's this idea that a bunch of guys together are going to be like dumb and when you hear a girl's coming, they're going to be flirty and stuff. But the exact same thing happens in return when it's an all-women society. And it's pretty good. I think they really do make a good job of kind of taking these standard tropes of gender in magical lore of fantasy books and such, and turning them on their heads and having fun with it. That's not even the main theme of the book. It's more of a side note. Really enjoy it. It's got Scott Mayer. Spell or High Water is book number 2 that I'm reading right now, and it's fantastic. I will be no doubt updating you guys with it over the next few months. The only other thing I want to really mention is that I've been kind of struggling to play video games a couple times this week. I've sat down and I'm like, all right, I've got like 15 minutes to kill, or I'm like having my dinner or my lunch or something. I'd like to play a game, and I just don't know what to do. I don't have any games that I want to hop into. Like League feels, I don't know. Like I have fun. League's only fun when I play with people now. So like when I play with yourself, Wayne, before the show, that's good fun and I enjoy it. But any other time, it just seems unappealing to me. I have StarCraft 2 installed. I was preparing that for a game night, but I don't expect to be back into a game night until I'm in Michigan now. So at least a month and a bit away. I've got Factorio, but that seems very daunting because you don't play Factorio 50 minutes. I've got Rocket League, but again, that was for game nights. I've got Stellaris, but again, you don't play that for 50 minutes. And I've got Surviving Mars, which looks like a really fun new game that I've wanted to play for some time now. But I don't know it yet, and I'm afraid to keep jumping into a game that I don't know that I have to learn. So I just feel in this like weird, I don't know, like I don't know which direction to go in kind of thing. Like it's that problem, right? I've got 435 bloody games in my Steam library. If you look at my completion rate, it's something like 8%. I mean, like it's pathetic, right? Like, how can I possibly complain about not having games to play when I have
all of the games? Yes,
hundreds of games. Like, it's just mad. I don't know what's wrong with me. The last thing I want to mention. Yeah, right. I just want to read right now. I'm just really enjoying reading. So the one other thing I want to mention is that I've been trying to get more into Twitch because it's something that I've never gone into, like esports or anything like that. It's never really been my thing, and that has always annoyed me because it's something I enjoy doing. Right? Obviously I like streaming. We've been doing it every week for literally about a decade now. But I've never enjoyed watching it that much, and I think it's more of I've been intimidated by the idea of it. So I've started watching a couple channels, sort of more comedy ones rather than for watching actual gameplay, and I've been enjoying them. One of them I'm a bit hesitant to even mention because the guy is quite controversial because he says some stuff that I'm not very comfortable with him saying because it's the edgy humor, right? It's like, oh, how edgy am I? I'm saying stuff that's controversial kind of humor. I mean, I find him funny a lot of the time, but I don't know. Sometimes he just says certain phrases and words that I just think have no place being said ever. Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Right?
No, there are things out there that just why would now you silly thing. The audio engine keeps trying to kill itself, and I don't know why. Like it keeps starting to want to buzz, and I'm not sure what it's doing. But no, there are certain things that I just don't think have any place in the world, and I don't support when people do it.
Yeah, like okay, if you'll make like really racist or really hardcore sexual or like rape jokes and stuff, right? I'm like, you can give a pass to maybe like professional comedians who can pull it off in a specific environment where everybody's having a good time and it's, you know, very, very well thought out and isn't just shock value. I don't enjoy shock value anything like that. I just find it kind of pathetic, actually.
Gotcha.
Right, and like, and generally speaking, if I had the choice, I'd rather live in a world where there was none of this crap and there was nobody using this as comedy at all. But in the end, I know that we do live in a world where, you know, there is something to be said for comedy that has offensive material. That's often half the joke of comedy, right? If we said comedy's not allowed to be offensive anymore, we wouldn't have comedy, right? And so I'm not going to try to say where the line should be drawn, but I know there's a bunch of streamers on Twitch and on YouTube that are fairly toxic, and you know, like I might enjoy their stream 90% of the time, but that last 10%, I'm like, why are you doing that?
Well,
why are you saying these things?
And people who do that, I tend not to support.
Right, I'm not. That's why. That's why I'm not saying any names in the stream. I don't want to point anybody in that direction. I really don't. So yeah, I've been trying to get into Twitch, but recommendations are welcome. Send me some names. I'm always happy to look into more people to follow and see what they're up to and stuff like that. I should also mention we started listening to Drunk Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Let me find it. Dungeons and Dragons the Drunk Dungeons and Dragons podcast. I don't know what it was called. Don't Drink in D&D, maybe. I found a few that could pop. I don't know. It was on Kitten's phone, so I don't know what his exact name was.
Okay.
But basically, these people got drunk and started playing D&D for the first time ever, and it was fairly amateur. Like there was a lot of like kind of awkward humor and in jokes and silence in between. It's their first podcast, right? But it was quite funny, and I was enjoying listening to it. And they caught on to like kind of a common theme of humor that I always enjoy in these kind of things, where they were saying that one of their characters was called Tom Darkblade, and he was like, "Everybody calls me Darkblade," and everybody was like, "I'm not going to call you Darkblade. I will call you Tom." It's just that kind of funny, like you're trying to be edgy and cool, but then everybody just shuts you down, like, no,
like, nope, not happening.
No. So yeah, I'm trying to stay in touch with D&D stuff because I'm aware that I've gone in touch with some people in Michigan who play D&D.
Oh,
and
nice.
I'm hoping that I can join their group when I arrive. So that'd be a good way to start meeting people over in the US.
Absolutely.
Locally.
No, it's a great way to get involved with other geeks. I have to admit, I have a desire to sit down and find a group again to really actually play D&D. Because I feel like I've still run into an issue where I've had lots of false starts and lots of like touching, tasting, like just barely an experience with it. And I feel like I haven't really had the opportunity to go back and explore and really get into what it is to roleplay. And so it's something that I need to find a group that I feel like could really allow me to. And for me, I don't believe I could DM. So I don't know, but it is something I would like to give another shot at some point. And find out what it is for me to dedicate the time and effort to do so.
I get that. For the idea of DMing to me sounds awesome fun. Like I would really love to do my own DMing of some own world that I've built myself. That sounds awesome. However, I don't know the rules and I don't know what to do. And it, like even looking at a combat flowchart just makes me like poop myself. I'm just, just like, I'm not going to do that. I don't know how to tell people what to do in these situations, depending on their class skills and depending on their, I don't know, their attributes and all this stuff and their races and things you just need to remember that you just learn from experience, I guess, right? And I think most people would agree that you should approach D&D not as a DM at the start, but as a player for a while, right? Get used to playing the game before you try to run one.
Yeah, seems like it would make sense.
Yeah.
So who knows? We'll see if that all runs around and if it can happen again. But I can understand that. But no, cool. I still am in another situation with casting. I haven't had enough time, is usually my issue, but where I found enough constant streamers or consistent ones that I'm entertained by. I've had moments where I've seen something like, oh, that's kind of cool, but nothing that's really grabbed me as, oh, I need to come back and find them again. I was telling, I think my brother this weekend that I've fallen off some on watching the Critical Role guys after I caught up enough to when they came with Denver Pop Culture Con to see them. I was no longer worried as much about keeping up, and the storyline at that point I felt like I kind of lost interest in. I may go back check it out again, but there's also so many other things I need to consume that I can actually spend some time on, where listening to other people play D&D is less one. Like if it's while I'm crafting and doing other things perhaps, but even then I've had other things that I'd prefer to learn and listen to while I'm doing other things. So it's just come off of my priority list at the moment.
I get that.
So,
yeah. So yeah, that's been my Week in Geek. Sir, what have you been up to?
All right, so I didn't have much to add for my geek this week. The only two ones I was going to bring up is that while I was at my cousin's out in Gothenburg, he introduced me to a game that I had not heard of or seen before, that I played a little bit of it, enjoyed, will have put on my wish list as something to wait to see go on sale. It's called Furi, F-U-R-I, on Steam, and it's an interesting concept in that it's a game that is essentially nothing but boss battles from kind of a top-down action RPG kind of a perspective. And it plays kind of like, to me, an interesting shooter/fighter. It's one where left control, I was using controller. I think it does work better for this kind of game. Left stick running around directionally, right stick shooting in whatever direction you're looking. So kind of like those arcade shooters. But at the same time, you're a character running around with a sword and happens to have guns as well. And in most of the boss fights, it's a sense that every fight has the classic boss patterns and things like that to, as you get introduced with, you have the ability to also melee attack, charge up your melee attack using the same button, and then striking, to defend/parry. Defending, it's more parry where it only happens for a moment, and so you have to time it. You got a lot of timing issues with that. And then they have an ability to dash, kind of run a direction towards it or a way where you somewhat teleport for a moment. I want to say those are the main ones. I think there's another action, one for each button. But essentially what you run into is each fight becomes patterns of all of those actions, where you're paying attention to when the enemies have openings and when you can apply the right actions and being able to react if they maybe attack you with a melee attack to do your parry just in time to open them up. But essentially you go through a health bar setup where you have a couple boxes that are each like how many times you can lose in a match before you're done. And then on the other side, they have the same thing. And then for every boss you fight, you get through their first health bar, and they drop for a moment, come back up, and then they start again, but with a new pattern and a new full health bar. And so each one may have 4 to 6, that I've seen so far, stages of that health, as well as what they do each mode. And as you go through, you can fail the number of times you have, and then once you fail them all, you have to start at the beginning of that fight again. But each time you fail, otherwise you start at whatever checkpoint of health bar, like whatever full box, whatever is stage in that battle that you're at, each time you start again.
Cool.
And I really enjoyed it. It was straightforward. I think it's like $20 for the game, which for what little bit I experienced, I don't think is how much I would want to pay for it. But it is a fun game, and so it's on the wish list. So if it goes down to like $5, $10, something, I may pick it up. But that one was pretty neat. F-U-R-I. It's got a fun storyline too between the fights. It's kind of its own little eclectic, not horror type or but uniquely written kind of characters. In
Well, thank you for sharing that because I would never have opened up a game that looks like it might be about furries. So I appreciate you delving into that and taking the blow for us.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, no, it's one that it is actually like legitimately. I appreciate the type of gameplay it provides, where it is just straightforward boss type action RPG fighting.
Quite pretty, actually. Isn't it?
It is.
It looks
No,
quite nice.
it's a neat game. I only played it for a moment. My cousin then came back in and showed me one of his favorite boss battles. What's interesting about the feel of the gameplay, and for people who've played classic, you name it, any kind of, I'd say, console type gaming situation, I think everybody has similar kind of experiences, memories of what you had to learn do when you finally made it through certain battles, right? Because this one has flow to it, and so there's a point where you kind of get the understanding of it's like going to any boss battle. You learn the pattern, you learn what it is that keys you into certain attacks, and therefore what your reactions have to be. And then after that, it turns into more the execution being the hard part, and being able to recognize what pattern it is and what thing you're going to have to do in reaction to whatever ability they pull. And then you just time it. But the neat thing about it definitely gave me the feel of those kind of games where when you get the timing right, and you kind of are bouncing around and you see them do the thing and you're already getting ready to hit the button, you pause that half second and then hit it just in the right time. It parries, it gives you the opening where you then get to melee in several hits, and then as they're getting ready to start the next attack, you jump in ahead of them because you recognize the opening. And so you do all that in a series of things and you knock a character down real quick. It gave me such a sense of accomplishment because it's one thing to recognize the pattern. The patterns aren't insane. It's quite another to execute what you have to do against that pattern.
That's cool.
And so it definitely gave me the response of just like, okay, I feel like a boss because I just got through this hard battle, or I clutch got it where they knocked me down earlier, but I was able to maintain with that last bar of health, get through, kill them at that last hit, and get to the next piece of the stage or to the next boss battle. And that was just really cool. So that's one I quite enjoyed playing Footery. Real quick, I was so exhausted I couldn't really spend the time I would have liked to on it, but enjoyed it. The other one that I played, or I showed him, was One Finger Death Punch.
Oh, I love One Finger Death Punch. Yeah.
He
so
had
fun.
never seen it, so I was like, dude, let me log in, or here, let me show you a video. Just do it. And actually, the funny part is I found TB's WTF on it. I didn't realize how old it was that he had done one back in the day and played that for him. And he watches like, okay, that looks like a lot of fun, and kind of gave him the same sense where it's simple, right? Two buttons. That's all the game is. But when you get into it, you start playing it, you get the rhythm of it and the feel of it. Man, it comes out making you just feel so good about how you did, about the execution of it and what it became. So that was another game we played. Beyond that, I've had the opportunity once yesterday and for a couple hours this morning, since I woke up far too early, of checking out the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare that's coming out because they have a free beta this weekend. And so was able to jump into it with El Campo and some of my normal FPS buds to rep the VTW tag in the new Modern Warfare. And we've been having quite a ball. This is one of those games where I'm trying to do the right thing and go by the mantra of do not pre-order any games, people.
Damn right.
Please stop encouraging companies to make potential garbage. Make them prove themselves and then buy the game. But so I have not pre-ordered it. It comes out here shortly. I think Campo said he did pre-order it again because I think he's pre-ordered every Call of Duty, even when he's gotten burned a couple times. But we played this on this morning. They had several new modes that I hadn't seen before. They had a larger 32-player match where it's basically objective-based capture and holds. That was fun. Vehicles, it felt a lot more like an old Battlefield game in a good way, so that's nice. Still had the feel of Call of Duty, but as a Battlefield. So there might be a bridge there for all those people who prefer Battlefield. The other mode that we played that was really interesting, they had one where, unlike previous ones where you'd have finite life, everybody gets like one life on the map. This one you did two, but you got unlimited ability to pick people up, so if they didn't kill all of you in time and they didn't finish the objective, you could run back to anybody's corpse on your team and revive them, and so it's a reason for people to stick around the whole match. Neat concept. I think it's a good twist on some of the original mechanics. And then the other one that we played just a bit of, Campo and I, was 2v2, which even I walked into the matches thinking, why would a 2-person versus 2-person, shooter match be fun? I don't understand. But it really was. And in the sense, Ken, almost how you were talking about when you have limited amount of time to play a match, I feel like that mode actually works really well. Because Camp, when I jumped in, it would take, they have some server issues getting people logged in, but jumped in, and we would be in a match, and it might take, because it's best to 6 of the 2 teams for wins, not just kills, but overall each match to kill both party. And even the full series of going 6 when we go back and forth some, maybe took 5.5, like just over 5 minutes, under 10 minutes, almost every one of those matches. And so that was actually really neat. Very just quick matches, but satisfying, where normally I'm like, this is my thing, but I got warmed up enough that I actually made some cool kills. I mean, Campo's still significantly better than me. But there's several matches where I cleaned up, where he got taken out early and I took out both the other team and had to stop and just be like, yes! I managed it, I did it. So we're having a lot of fun with that. It's got it now on my likely to buy list for the new Call of Duty. People out there understand I like first-person shooters. I don't follow, and I have not bought all of them, so I don't believe I'm just a sheep in that I will buy anything that gets put out by Activision, because I do not believe that's the case. But this one does look solid. As Campo put it, there's no jetpacks, wall running, any of those kind of things. It is a throwback to what feels like the mechanics that made Modern Warfare good. The other interesting things about it is cross-play. So we were playing in matches with people playing on Xboxes and PlayStations, all seamlessly. Thank you. Hopefully that continues, and there's no specific thing that changes or we have to do differently. So far, it was hard for us usually to tell who was on what. There were a couple times when we'd see the last remaining people on our team that we'd look and say, okay, you're on a console, because the way you're moving is very much jerky, like big motion stop, big motion stop versus smooth transitions. We're like, all right, you probably a console player, but otherwise it was a really solid experience, so I'll probably be checking that out. That's what I've been doing that's been geek this week, so I think it is appropriate, as we have about a half hour left in the show, for us to jump over and talk about some things in the news with
technology, news, and more today on the Geekoscope.
So as we kick over into the Geekoscope, Ken, I know you got stories you'd like to bring up.
Got so many, fam. So many. All right. So, first of all, something silly. Untitled Goose Game.
Oh, yeah.
As we discussed last week, right? It's been getting a fair bit of news because I think it's been kind of a popular, fun, silly game to play, to pick up and screw around with. It began as a workplace Slack joke. So for those who aren't aware, Slack is kind of like Discord, but for programmers and other IT-type workplaces. Basically, this is a chat platform that also has some additional functionality that can
so you can share stuff,
sync it to other apps like Dropbox or GitHub and stuff like that. It's pretty neat. Anyway, so the Goose is finally loose. Untitled Goose Game was released on the 20th of September, so 2 days ago, for Nintendo Switch and PC, and a tweet that seemingly depicts how this strange stealth game about a goose got made is circulating the internet. A tweet in 2016 by Michael McMaster, a developer on Untitled Goose Game, seemingly depicts a work Slack conversation that led to the creation of the Untitled Goose Game. So yeah, that's where it came from, apparently, which is quite amusing. And it has a picture of them in Slack chatting back and forth, and somebody says, let's make a game about this, and just sends a picture of a goose. That's pretty funny. That's from IGN, so thanks to IGN for that. Okay, now I'll go something a little bit more serious. Sorry.
That's fine. I had heard about it coming out, so it's good to start hearing things about it.
I have a bit of a soft spot for these kind of games that just don't take themselves too seriously, and they're just fun, right? There's very little in the way of goals. There's no objectives, not really any achievement. It's just screw around. I kind of like that kind of stuff. It's just comedy games, right? Valve will appeal the French courts on the alleged anti-consumer ban on digital games resale. So this past week, Steam and Valve have been told that their Steam platform must allow reselling of digital items and games.
That's an
otherwise,
interesting
it's
one.
Unconstitutional, right? It's against French law otherwise. Valve has said they're going to appeal this because they think it's ridiculous. I agree with this, actually. I was thinking about it, and that's the biggest thing, the biggest fault in Valve's... I love Steam, right? I really do like Steam.
Yep.
I don't love a monopoly. Nobody does, right? In the end, it's a very useful monopoly for us, and we as the consumers don't notice how bad things are behind the scenes. But most games, I think it's 20% is what they have to give to. So imagine you made a game, right? And imagine you spent hundreds or thousands of hours making an indie game for yourself. You finally managed to get in Steam. You're so proud, and you're like, "Oh my god, I made $1,000 this month. Oh wait, I need to pay taxes, and oh wait, I need to give away 20% to Valve as well." You'd already feel pretty cut from giving away taxes to, help society. Now you've also given a huge chunk to Valve. Now, I admit they should, of course, be getting paid some for hosting the game on their servers and for letting people download it there and for being on their store and aggregating it all in one place. And right, yeah, you're paying for access to the audience, right, to the users of Steam. However, 20% is a bit much. I mean, in reality, if it was 2%, Valve would still be making a profit, right? So I think it's just ridiculous that they have to do that. So this idea of reselling games, being allowed to... So imagine you have these old games, or say you play through something that you really enjoyed and you fly through it. I don't know, like let's say God of War, right? Say God of War came out last week, and in the past week you played the crap out of it. So you decide to sell it on, like you would have with any physical medium, right? You'd be like, this is still £45, $50 in the stores. I'm going to sell it for maybe $30, right? And that's great. That means you only spent $20 on the game effectively, and you're like, that was well worth it. The game gets passed on. Valve can get their cut then again if they so please. I don't see why they can't get a sale at that point, right?
Interesting.
5% on every sale. Why not? Go ahead. They're the one handling the transaction on our behalf. Fine.
Interesting. I see
right?
where you're going.
Make money on it.
Yeah, I see where you're going.
And that way the original user gets it nice and cheap, and so does the next person who gets it in line. They'll get it cheaper as well. And the great thing about being digital is you're not going to get these disgusting scratches on your CDs and the artwork stolen and the keys inside of the case being used already, right? You're gonna get the full thing. I like this. I like it a lot. And I think this also gives, third-party aggregates an ability to use the Steam store as a mechanism for, doing their own real-world trades. They can buy games on the cheap and sell them on more or whatever, if they so pleased. If you wanted to make some money on the fly, you could do that. You could be a hunter on Steam, and that's interesting. I think having it as a marketplace instead of a single seller, right? Instead of the monopoly that is Valve, I think it's pretty neat if you could have multiple sellers. I like this idea.
So,
what do you think, Wayne?
I actually also really like this concept because the key to it, and Crimson, you bring up an interesting thing. If Valve gets money, what about the producer of the game? Do they get some too? I think, so here's the key. I would say arguably you could, because it's just a percentage thing, right? And you could talk about good, bad, or ugly, because I think the challenge goes into if you're going to resell games, and okay, I'll back it up, just the base concept. I think the ability to sell the license that you have purchased to allow you to access and play a game, especially in a realm like today where most things are digitally managed, should be essentially a no-brainer, should be easy, and should make sense to do. The challenge is that their motivation to do so from a distributor and from a company is probably very low, because they feel like it would undercut their own sales, because what they've seen as a heyday of this, as Steam took off, is people buying more games than they've ever bought before. They've made it so convenient that people are just buying it. You see someone get excited about it, you buy your own copy, things like that. That's just how the world is right now. And so I can absolutely understand where they would not want to go this way. However, I do feel like we as consumers should be allowed to, in an open marketplace, sell to whatever desired amount we want anything in our license, like in our library, any of the licenses we own. Now, there may be a desire or something to limit prices. I don't know. I still think that, in a way, I think that's maybe wrong. But I think there would be a thing where it would make sense if, on the resale market, 5% or maybe either 5 or 10% of whatever the overall price that you sell it is, right, goes back in percentages to Steam as a hosting service and the original creators of the title. And so,
I've got a great idea. So, okay, the original people who made the game, they've already made their money back, right? They sold a license. They got the full price for that.
They got the full price of the license.
Minus Steam's cut. And
whatever
taxes,
whatever their original thing was, yes.
Yeah, so they've already been paid. That's fine. Steam's also already been paid because they got paid for hosting and letting it be downloaded, etc. They need to be paid for that again because we don't become the host for the servers, right? Yeah. We don't then pass on the data. That's not how it works. That'd be dumb. So instead, they need to use the Steam's service again. So they should get paid again. I genuinely do believe that'd be fair.
To some level.
How much? How much is different, right? It should be much less this time because they're just. It's not the same thing.
Yep.
They're not the publisher anymore. They're not the platform. They're just the redistributor.
Yes.
Right? It's a lesser form.
As well as for them, they're basically getting free money at this point. But yes.
Absolutely. But because of this, I think that perhaps to ensure a minimum value on games and a good way for Valve to save face on this kind of thing, where they're still making money, right? They're still making that extra cut, right? And I think their way of saving face to do that is to have an additional few percent on top that goes to charity. Okay, I think that's a grand idea.
I could see charity. That's somewhat like the Humble Bundle type model.
Yeah.
But I do still think that if we want to get publishers to get on board, because I think the challenge with but the creators of the games as a whole, right, is that they're going to say they're losing sales, right? It's the same reason they've tried to block every time they could GameStop and other companies that do resale market, Electronic Boutique, any of those old game things. But if you got it so that any transaction, whatever that percentage is, right? So say if as a whole we decide that 10% of whatever you sell it for should go back in to the overall market, we split that up into say that 4% goes to Steam and you split the other rest of it between some charity and and I would even say charity of your choice, like have a group you could choose from. You just have it in your profile. That way you're not stuck to one charity or something, but have a multitude. And then a percentage still back to the developer or the people who originally made it, because for them, I think that adds a value in that they're still making money on something. I know why they won't want to, right? Because right now they get full value of whatever they set the market in every time, right? Every sale. And it's not killing their sales. The challenge is you and I and stuff like this where we look, and I can see challenges with when people get bundles and do stuff like that. But that I can have, the 400 games in my library, look back and say, wow, there's like 50 of these, 100 of these, maybe 150 of these. I will never play. Ever. And so if I could turn around and relist them on the used Steam market for some, even if I did a bulk thing, grabbed a whole list of them and said, sell these licenses for, 10% of what I paid for them. Yeah. Just because I want to dump them.
But imagine the reverse as well. Okay. You are a kid, right? You're a 10-year-old kid who loves video games, and you got an alright computer, nothing fancy, you can get by, and you get say you get $10 a week for pocket money, right, or $10 a month or something, right? You're from a poor family, and you make even less, right? But you struggle to get by, and getting a new video game sounds fantastic, but you need to pay for your own goddamn lunch money or something, right? That would suck. That's a sucky situation to be in. Does that kid deserve to play video games? You're goddamn right that kid deserves to play video games. Of course they do. Every kid deserves to play video games. So this is a solution, right? Instead of them having to always pay full price, why can't they get like third, fifth, seventh hand online and get a nice cheap version of it? Because the thing is, people aren't going to be selling these things when they come out. They're going to be selling them way down the line. They're like, oh, I'm probably not going to play that again, right?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, there's so many challenges to this, right? I agree with you, though. I think, yes, you should be able to resell your license. I think licenses as a whole, the way they're managed today, are wrong, is my lightest way of saying it. And I would argue, in many cases, I'd find the right way to say or classify them as illegal, non-competitive, so many other stronger words to try to find ways to cut it out. But in the interim, not having that, I absolutely would say that you should be able to transfer a license. I no longer want to have it. I want to give it to someone else. Crimson, that might be an opportunity to help what could be scams or things from happening. Being able to set a wait period of how long before you can transfer something, a title. I can see things like that because, well, I say this in this way, Ken, because like there may be an opportunity to say you cannot resell a title within 30 days of it launching, or maybe longer than that.
Fine.
Right?
Yeah,
well,
I'd
because
be okay with up to maybe like 3 months or
because
whatever. I mean, in the end,
some
like
number.
real life, you know.
Yeah, some
real
number.
life kind of says like right now in the store it says like if you want to go and buy a game, you know, and you want to save money, you probably have to wait a year or two. And if you're a patient gamer, fine, go for it. Go check out the subreddit Patient Gamers, by the way.
That's
They're
where,
dedicated to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's a completely acceptable play style and way to live life. If you can be patient like that, you can save a heck of a lot of money. Yeah. And I think it makes sense because the creators do deserve to get that bigger cut of their fun of stuff for the first few months.
Absolutely.
People rushing out to buy it, fine. I think all this would do is encourage creators to create more hype, especially games like multiplayer, right? Because if people are buying for multiplayer to play with all other people, everybody else, they'll want to one, get ahead of the game, literally, and two, they'll also want to play when there's more people to play against, right? So you have more chance of that if it's especially a small game at launch.
Yeah.
So if you have to wait 3 or 6 months before you can buy a second-hand one, you'll be like, oh man, I might not get to play online with anybody anymore. You know?
Yeah,
we've all experienced that. I remember Populous at the beginning. I remember I used to love that game as a kid. And when I was about 19, I hopped onto it again. And I was like, oh, I wonder if anybody from the old community is there. Nah, dead, gone. Servers are shut down and everything. Like, you cannot go online now.
Yeah, that's one of the worst cases. If you don't get on at the beginning, in most online games these days, you're never going to be able to truly be able to play them. Because the community is fickle. Yeah. The community moves on. The best option you have is if you can find basically hacked, but third-party options of how you can connect, because you may find those 100 people in the world that still play it, but you have to go through some side channel to do it yourself, right, to actually connect to them.
Aye.
But the ones you find, they'll play.
That's the beginning did, actually. They had a side server you could hop onto. And shout out to Crimson Shadow, that's exactly what we're saying. Yeah, some kind of wait period before you can sell the license, be it 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, exactly.
No, I like this idea, I do, and I think it could work, because I absolutely agree that it's licenses, right? Because my challenge is right now in general, this isn't just video games alone, technology, movies, entertainment, anything you get, most companies will argue you're not buying a physical item, you're buying a license to utilize an item in the way that company has said dictated. And I often think that is too much power for them. This goes back to the old gamer issue and movie issue of like region locks and nonsense like that. Like, why the hell shouldn't I be allowed to play this game in a different country? Just because, it's dumb stuff like that. And so I think licenses can be abused and are sometimes wrong. But I don't know. I am almost always on the advocacy of consumer rights when it comes to these kind of things. What can we as individuals do around it and still allow those companies to make the money they're trying to make? That's a big part. And actually, Earthweaver, beyond that, not just the GOG sale, because Epic's trying hard to get people to play under. If you go to the Epic store right now, you should still be able to get the licenses for, there it is, Crimson, thank you, the Batman, I want to say it's the collection, like Arkham Asylum, all those collection on Epic for free, as well as 3 of the Batman Lego games licenses for free in the Epic store right now. Because, man, they want people to play games on Epic.
Problem that you gotta get the installer, though. They were overrated games, in my opinion, anyway. Shout out to Hando, who also just won for randomly being one of the people who retweeted us on Twitter. Thank you to all the people who have retweeted us. We got a good number, actually. Thank you for that. We've given out 2 codes today for various games. So congrats to the people who have won free video games on Steam for retweeting us. We very much appreciate it. We'll do this frequently.
Yeah, we just have to keep acquiring random stuff.
Yeah, easy peasy. Also, if you ever get a spare code, you can also donate that to us, and we'll happily give it away in a competition or whatever.
Yeah.
So we've all got a couple of spare codes lying around because you buy a pack, and then for one specific game when you've got the other 3, whatever. So feel free to send them in if you've got any spares. showx@vtrussians.com.
Yeah, thank you. With that, all right. So for me, something else that just happened over this weekend ish is the Area 51 raid. out in Las Vegas, or out in Nevada, basically. North of
As they
Area
said,
51.
yes, they were Naruto running to slap some spicy alien cheeks, I believe
Yeah.
is the
Clap.
quote
Clap
from the news article I was
aliens.
reading earlier.
to do some clapping of aliens, yes.
Yes.
So, I've got two silly little articles about this.
I just said that on air.
So, the one from Time, which is probably more official and such, and the Yahoo one. The first one I'll do, because I joke about this one. But it says in Yahoo Entertainment, the title of it is Exactly One Person Actually Stormed the Gates of Area 51. And so the Storm Area 51 event drew a few hundred people, and the other article I have from Time says they may have peaked at about 3,000 people overall from the promised 50,000 people that all said they were going to attend, and the millions of people that liked the idea and wanted to see it happen. And so this comes in saying that a video surfaced on social media of several partygoers watching as a woman slowly walked through the first set of gates into Area 51. At first, the group laughs as she begins to walk across government gates protecting the government installation, but as the woman gets further into the facility, they start to warn her, don't do it. One onlooker then said she might actually make to the other gate on the other side. Finally, someone just gives her words of encouragement, yells, "Good luck." In the video, you can clearly see sheriff deputies watching the whole thing unfold. It seems they are allowing the woman to be stopped by federal authorities who guard the compound. According to law enforcement, there were several people detained for trespassing over the weekend and one person arrested for public urination. Quote, "We arrested one guy for indecent exposure out of Canada at the gate." Authorities confirmed they did detain a woman for investigative purposes, but the storming of the gates never actually happened. There was one video that came on that showed a news reporter talking about it and at least one person running behind the reporter doing the Naruto run.
I love that. Yeah, can you show that? Can you put it on the screen?
Can I find that one?
I'll describe it while Wayne gets that up. Basically, there was there's this. So basically, what they did is, in order to capitalize in a capitalistic society, of course, on this meme, Alien Fest was created. It's supposed to be this annual festival that just started up, a music festival near Area 51, where people can come along, listen to music, do drugs, and have a good time. We don't condone drug use. And while a reporter was talking about this on air, some dude Naruto ran past them in the background, arms akimbo behind and head down, running like that because it makes you go faster, of course, running like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. So for those who aren't aware, there's actually a Wikipedia article on it now that's called "Storm Area 51. They Can't Stop All of Us."
Which is so dumb, mind you, but yes.
Yeah. So there was 1.5 million interested people on the events page. Which made all the memes. So many memes. The guy who created Matty Roberts confirmed the event was purely comedic and disavowed responsibility. He actually cancelled the event 2 weeks ago.
He basically was saying, please don't. You guys realize, please don't.
Well, I think he got an official notice from the FBI, didn't they, or something like that? I think he got told off anyway. And I know that the government actually made a couple of announcements saying, we will not take trespassing lightly. They were like, we will shoot you. Do not think that we're kidding. We will shoot you if you come towards us.
Oh, it doesn't look like the screen capture, for whatever reason today, is wanting to show my screen, so I don't know if I can actually show it, but I do have a link for those who want to follow along. This is a quick video from YouTube that you can click on and watch real quick during this, where it shows a news situation where it's funny because obviously the event set up had a lot of things ready for it, but this is a news report of the local Action 13 News, where as a guy goes to talk about someone just really quickly in the background goes running past doing Naruto run. The video, if you click on it, shows it multiple times, so you can kind of just see it and enjoy. But so at least one person did Naruto run, as we see that. The other article I have about the event, Time, says, laughs, masks, and a sense of community. Most people came in peace to Area 51 raid. Here's what actually happened. And they said that one small Nevada town was bracing itself for the original alien-themed music festival that the viral internet joke that gave birth anticipated that anywhere between 5,000 and 25,000 attendees would descend on their tiny desert town of 40 to 50 residents. But what happened over the weekend in Rachel, Nevada wasn't remotely the catastrophe that most had feared. Some people say it was honestly breathtaking, says Matthew Carswell, 22, who flew from Miami to Nevada for Alien Stock. It was a really good atmosphere. Number of the guests, they say, peaked at around 3,000, according to the Reno Gazette Journal. And the organizer, Maddie Roberts, the 21-year-old who started it all, said the Storm Area 51, they can't stop us all, parted with the festival early in September. So he distanced himself way back. Essentially what this turned into was like the lightest of weight Burning Mans you can imagine, where a lot of people were there to sell alien-themed things. A lot of people showed up and kind of hung out, chatted, listened to music, and then went home. That it really wasn't anything major that occurred. But I felt like I needed to bring it up and at least mention it because this was something that had happened, a month and a half, 2 months ago where it brought up and then went away. It's funny because I think earlier last week, as I was traveling around, I started seeing memes on social media the week leading up to it saying like, hey, so when that raid is scheduled this weekend and you haven't seen a meme about it for a couple weeks, what's up? Is it still happening?
Yeah.
Right, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it was just... I think there's some sort of human psychiatry like a basic thing with our psyches, like we get bored with certain memes, we see them too much. And I think that it came out, that idea came out way too early. If he scheduled it like 2 months ago, was the actual date, I genuinely think hundreds, maybe thousands of people would have stormed the gates.
If he hadn't walked away, if it had been something that was stated and then slowly added to with more information on the plan of here's people attending, here's the time, here's schedules of things, here's where you should congregate, that kind of thing, it would have kept the momentum and you probably would have some.
Well,
now,
maybe.
I say this...
It's the memes is the main thing, though. Like, the memes just died off. If they kept going, people would have been like, let's do it. Let's do it. It's cool.
The memes part of it, perhaps, but I think if they had actually organized it like a real event, people would have shown up much more. Because it went dead, disappeared. I have two sides of that. One, whether the event could have occurred and been real. I didn't advocate it from the get-go. I told people, you're dumb. It's a military facility. They got the right to shoot you on sight when you're behind the lines and such. So, yeah, just a heads up, they can actually shoot you. They will actually shoot you. You'll be lucky if they're nice enough to, arrest you because they have every right to.
Yep.
Beyond that, when I talk about the memes piece, yes, one of the challenges I think exists today, and all of you youths that are out there dealing with life, is meme culture is an extension of everything we've seen, where I'd argue y'all have gotten even further along the lines of ADD and inability to focus and keep to something than I've ever seen. It has continued to get worse, shorter and shorter, where I think I was having a discussion with my cousin over the week about the term yeet. Y-E-E-T, when I see it.
So do you know where it came from? I can tell you.
I don't. Please educate, because I will give my analysis of what I think it means.
All right. So there's one original Yeet video. Here it is here in the chat. Basically, there was this girl who was given a can of soda, and she flings it into a crowd, and for some reason screams the word yeet. And now yeet means to throw something carelessly for comedic effect.
Interesting.
So if you're told to yeet your depression, it's like a funny thing because you can't throw it away with comedic effect, which in itself is comedic.
So
right? It's yeah.
Well, so what's interesting about that is because I did not have any understanding of the origin. For me, it has all been by the context in which I've seen it used over time. Is all I've had to go on. And what I have garnered from how I've experienced it and how I've seen people using it, my definition of, or not necessarily definition, but kind of a combination of that and how it's been used, I feel like yeet has become this blend between what I argue has died, essentially, the terminology and the casual throwing out the term YOLO, of you only live once, which I always thought was a poor use of terminology, because I felt like what was really meant by you only live once is let me try to do this thing that might be fleeting, exciting, something like this, because you only live once, so let me try to experience it. And then I saw a lot of people using YOLO as kind of just I'm going to throw caution to the wind in a bad way, like I'm just going to go do something stupid because I only live once, versus I'm trying to experience life to its fullest.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I feel like Yeet is taking the concept of YOLO, as memed and people do, and seeing it from almost this very young, anxious, the world is on fire kind of mentality, where it's like the anxiety-ridden version of YOLO, where it's the, okay, I'm going to YOLO this, but at the same time, everything's crazy. I don't know if anything's going to work, and it's all a hot mess, so yeet. And that's been kind of how I have felt when I see it used. The way I've seen it in context, that's kind of the feeling I get. Like you said, the origin of it, the origin of it, the origin of it not, but I've rarely seen anyone use it that I could see it relating back to that video. Just because I see younger folks throwing it out there, and I'm kind of like, yeah, that's weird.
So there's this. I cited it in the chat there. It's not the original. I couldn't bother finding it, but there's this there's this algorithm that's quite popular right now in GIS kind of doing artificial intelligence for analyzing imagery, be it satellite or otherwise. And there's this popular algorithm called YOLO, which stands for you only look once. So it's a deep learning algorithm that will glance at images and work out whether it's an orange or a cat or whatever, a river or something, and so on. There's one of the papers of a similar kind of somebody made a new one called YOLO Light. But I just think it's funny because clearly some young researcher somewhere was like, I'm going to call it YOLO, and it's actually be used by like satellite science, like real rocket science.
Hey, that kind of stuff happens all the time. I love it. I see acronyms made often, or just discussions where you realize this person took that opportunity and specifically thought about, how can I get these letters to come out of this concept so that I can name it this? We see the results of that probably too often, where somebody really took that effort.
I'm just going to go shout out to one other fantastic paper that I love, absolutely adore the title of. This came out in July this year. Fantastic yeasts and where to find them. The hidden diversity of dimorphic fungal pathogens. I thought that was really good. This kind of thing. Another one is from the American Journal on Addictions. I think it's quite a prominent journal. The paper title is Medical Marijuana. Why can't we all just get a bong?
So those are all just very clever titles to go with things that you that make sense, right? That's great.
Yeah, they're like hardcore like science, like real cutting edge science and research, and they're I just think it's kind of nice that they have titles that can be kind of funny and
yes,
and
that
relaxed.
Somebody could tie to what you are. You know where it's going, right?
Yeah,
and that they're having fun with it. I like that.
Who knows? It might encourage a couple more scientists to a couple of teens to go, oh, that's kind of funny, and read it, and then be like, oh, I'm interested in science.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I think that's hilarious. So those are good. All right. It is time for us to wrap things up this week. We have run to the end of the week. At least we kept up with some of the what's local, what's happening, what's going on this week, as well as what we've been up to. As we continue to settle, we will be working our way to try to get everything updated and some new stuff going, trying to be a little creative as we get with our intro, outros, and stuff like that, transitions, some other things. As Ken and I are talking about trying to take more interest in the Twitches, it's not just for the benefit of entertainment, it's so that we can learn to be more entertaining for you. So we will be working on that in the upcoming weeks. Hopefully we may try to pick a show or date to debut and come up with, here's where it's happening, here's what we're doing. So we'll figure that out. Again, thank you guys for watching and listening. Feel free to help us out. As Ken was saying, if you have channels and streams you'd like us to check out, email or message us direct, let us know. If there are artists that you would maybe like to hear through the music break, let us know. You can also check us out on all our other medias to help us become aware. But with that, I will transition over to Ken to roll us out of here. And please check us out in the Discord after the show as we chat, game, and do other things.
You have been listening to ShowX on twitch.tv/VTW ShowX. Thank you very much for tuning in. We very much appreciate it. You can help us out in so many different ways. Some ways that I'm not even really sure how it works. You can subscribe to us on Twitch, and you can turn notifications on as well. So you go. I think it tells you when we go live. Or
yeah,
something.
The little thing that's like.
That works.
I think you get emails when we go live, as well as if you're on Twitch, it pops up. Something.
I mean,
like
I wouldn't do that. That sounds like a right pain in the butt. But
Well,
at least like us and follow us.
At least for us, that's usually once a week on Sunday, and maybe on a day or two Thursday through the weekend when we were gaming a couple times.
Yeah. It's up to you guys. I don't like notifications, but if that kind of stuff, if you think that'd be useful, I know you guys don't listen to the show. If that's useful and you want to tune in when we're live, I'd appreciate that. That's awesome.
Hey, I do know there are a few folk that appreciate the tweets that go out because they're kind of like, oh yeah, it's this time.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah. We don't mind that, and if this is a nice proactive approach. So if you guys want to do that, please do. Share us with your friends. Retweet our stuff. Share the links around the Facebooks and the Twitters and the MySpaces. Wait, no, maybe not that one. Wherever, tell your friends on Discord, right? And whatever. We appreciate all that. Even when it comes to the free games and stuff, the cool thing is we've got a nice small community. So when we give away free games, you got a good chance of getting it. So if you want to get your friend on to join you on, a video game or something, and we're giving away a free game, who knows? They might get a game that might encourage some of you guys to play together or something. So get them involved. They might get some free games out of it as well. All right. You can also send us an emails to showx@vtwrussians.com. Follow us on twitter.com/VTWShowX, twitter.com/DocDead, and twitter.com/drkenreed for the show, for Mr. Wayne, and for myself. You can follow us on Facebook by searching for ShowX there, and you can also follow us on reddit.com/r/ShowX. Give us upvotes there. That's much appreciated with each show because it increases our chances of being seen by other communities and trending and so on. So that's always appreciated. And comment as well, and like it and so on, or whatever. And I don't know how Reddit works. Okay. Thank you very much for having me on the show, sir. It's been a good time.
Always, sir. Great to have you. And thank you all for tuning in. We will catch you again next week. With that, you've been listening to ShowX on VTWProductions.com. Yes. And on our Twitch, and check out our archives on our YouTube. We will catch you again next week, guys. Thanks all, and we'll see you in Discord. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. See you next zombie.